Hello, everybody. So today we'll be starting with the lesson number 4. As you know, the exam is going to be from lesson 1, 4, 5, then lesson 1 of chapter 11. So the basic patterns of human inheritance is very important that we understand. One of the most important thing in this lesson is the pedigree. So what is a pedigree is a helpful tool which has been used in analyzing the inheritance of traits through several generations. So through several generations. So we're going to talk about carrier and we're going to talk about pedigree a lot in this lesson. So as you know, gene is a school segment of DNA that help to control the production of proteins. So we have in the pedigrees, we need to understand that sometimes some traits are recessive, sometimes some traits are dominant. So recessive traits are expressed only when the individual is homozygous recessive for a trait. What does that word mean? If a recessive trait, for example, albino is a recessive trait. Albino is a recessive trait. Let's say the recessive trait of albino is represented by double lowercase a. So, and a person with a normal melanin is represented by either these or these. But because this is a recessive disorder, a person who would have this recessive disorder would have the two recessive alleles. So an individual who is heterozygous for recessive disorder is a carrier. This person is heterozygous. What does heterozygous mean? The melanin is got one dominant and one recessive. So since he's heterozygous, we call him a carrier. But this guy with a double recessive is what is sick from the disease, and this person is healthy. So it's healthy. So inheritance of disorders in humans can be achieved by the use of pedigree. So the pedigree is a diagram that would help to trace the inheritance of a particular trait through several generations. Now let's take a look at the pedigree we have here. A pedigree uses symbols to illustrate inheritance of a trait. In every pedigree, we usually have the female represented by a circle. So because sometimes your question will not have a color, it's not colored, so it's going to be black and white. So if you have any question which is related to a female, it's going to be a circle without being shaded. That is a normal female, a female who is normal. But it's a female who's got the disease is going to be shaded circle. So this is the female who is having the disease. But a female carrier would have half shaded and half not shaded. So a female carrier would be like this. So this is it. So this line you see stands for a generation. So this is one generation. This one means there is another generation. This is a second generation. So whenever you see one square with one circle, it means these two are parents. These two are parents, one male, one female. But whenever you see something like this with the lines drawn like this downward, it tells you all these people, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all siblings. They're all siblings. So what about the male? The male is represented by a square. What if the sick male, the one who is actually having the problem, is having a square but is being shaded? And a male who is a carrier is going to have shaded square. So this is the basics you need to understand very well. Now let's take a case study of the recessive disorder, for example, with a Tay-Sachs. A Tay-Sachs is a disease which is common among the Jews. And in this case, the person who are carriers, both parents are carriers of Tay-Sach. Whenever you have both parents being carriers of Tay-Sach, so you would have one of the child who is going to be sick from Tay-Sach. But if you have one parent healthy and one parent carrier, you can never have a child who would have Tay-Sach. Why? Because it's a recessive disorder. So it's a recessive disorder. Before a baby would have its Tay-Sach, it has to inherit two recessive alleles. It is not possible to inherit two recessive alleles if one of the parent is not a carrier. So one of the parents has to be like, let's say we want to represent Tay-Sach with A. So the two parents has to be AA and AA. So if you cross these two parents, AA, please, you should learn how to cross very well. It's going to really help you in solving many problems. So this will be A, uppercase, uppercase. This uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, lowercase, lowercase, lowercase. So this is the child, this is the baby who would be having the disease, is the one who would be having the disease because he is inheriting he or she is inheriting the double recessive alleles. But the other ones, they're inheriting double dominant. This person inherited double dominant. And this is heterozygous who is a carrier. And this is also heterozygous who is a carrier for the disease. All right. So this indicates that both parents are heterozygous carriers. So this parent is a carrier. So, and the half-filled square and the circle shows that both parents are carriers. So, but when we talk about the dominant genetic disorders, it's not the same with the recessive. In a dominant genetic disorder, one need to only inherit one dominant allele to have the disease. So the affected parents can pass the gene to the children. Unaffected parents cannot have affected children. So the pedigree shows an example of a dominant genetic disorder called polydactyly. Polydactyly is actually when you have an extra finger or extra toes. So when you have extra fingernails or toes, you have a polydactyly. So what are we talking about? Let's say, for example, we want to represent polydactyly with A. So a person who has A, or a person who has A would both have polydactyly. But a person who's got this would not have it. So the meaning is you need to only inherit one dominant allele to have a dominant genetic disorder. So let's say this is allele responsible for polydactyly. A person needs to only inherit one of it to have the disease. So that's the reason you can see the father is not having it, the mother has it. So they had children. Among the children, we have a female who's got the disease and a male who's got the disease. So when both of them marry, this one doesn't have a child with the disease, and this one also, the child doesn't have the disease. But what would happen is they may have another child who's going to have the disease. So what the main thing we have to understand is one parent doesn't have it and the other parent has it. Inferring genotypes. Pedigree can be used to infer genotypes from the observation of the phenotypes. When you know the physical traits of a person, you can determine what kind of gene the person has. How do you do this? We use what we call the pedigree, can help you to predict the possibility of a disorder occurring in the future offsprings. This is more accurate if several individuals within the family are evaluated. If you have more members of the family going through the process of evaluation, then you would be able to see that there could be a chance for some members of the family to have the disease. Record keeping helps scientists use pedigree analysis to study when a family keeps a good record. Is going to make it easier for the doctors or the geneticists to be able to make inference from the pedigree. Now we want to study some recessive genetic disorders. A good example is albinism. Albinism is one of the recessive disorders. So the body does not produce normal amount of pigment, melanin. So what is the effect of this? There's no color on the skin, eye, and hair. The skin is very susceptible to UV damage. There is always visual problems. What is the treatment? There is no cure for it. You have to protect the skin from sun and all the environmental factors, visual rehabilitation. So in the exam, you might find some questions which might look like from some other topics. If you find any question, because genetics is very interconnected. So it's not very easy for you to say you want to be 100% sure that this question is not from another lesson. So if you have some questions which might be a continuation from all the lessons, just write a note in your exam and inshallah, we will deal with it very well. But I want you to study everything. Cystic fibrosis is another example of a recessive genetic disorder. The cause of cystic fibrosis, the gene that codes for the membrane protein is defective. So the membrane protein, the gene that codes for it becomes defective. So what happens is there is a production of excess mucus. So these excess mucus would go down the digestive tract sometimes, and sometimes it goes down the lungs. So causes a respiratory problem and causes digestive problem. So what is the treatment? Is there is no cure for it, but what people usually do is daily cleaning of the mucus from the lungs. So there's another medicine, which is a mucus thinning drug, which can be used to thin the thickness of the mucus. So another one is a pancreatic enzyme supplement. Another good example of recessive genetic disorder is galactosemia. Galactosemia is caused when there is no gene that codes for the enzyme, which helps to break down galactose. So among the problems a person would have from this is mental disability, enlarged liver, kidney failure, and also cure. The treatment is there's no cure for it. So you can easily restrict the consumption of food that has lactose and galactose in it. Tay-Sachs, as I mentioned to you before, is caused by the absence of necessary enzyme that helps to break down fatty substances. The effect is a buildup of fatty deposit in the brain. So it usually causes mental disability. It causes mental disability, and also there's no care for it, and the babies usually die at the age of 5. Now let's talk about the genetic disorder, which is dominant. The ones we talked about before, they were recessive. So now example of dominant is Huntington disease. It's a gene when a gene affecting neurological function has been defective, the person would have Huntington disease. So what is the symptom, or how does it affect the person? There would be a decline in mental or neurological functions. The person's mental functionability goes down. So the ability to move will deteriorate because the brain controls the movement. So there is no cure for it and there's no treatment for it. The last one is achondroplasia. This is the case, this is called rubor. So a gene that affects the bone growth is abnormal. So it causes the child to have a short arm and is going to have a short legs too. So they usually have a large head, and there's no treatment for these too. So these are some of the questions you can practice, which is not true about a carrier of genetic disorders. So you can try to practice them yourself. The slide is with you with answer keys. So there's no need to take some time. So look at this question here. It says, how many affected males and females are shown in the pedigree? So where did we start from? We count from here. So this is a female, this is a male, this is a male. So it should be one female and 2 males. Let's see. Let's see. This is it. Can you see? So, and which of these disorder could not follow the inheritance pattern shown in the pedigree? So which of these? So this is 2 parents who were healthy. They had a baby who is having a disease. So now, how do you want to know what the answer is going to be like? Look at the offspring from these 2 parents. So they're all fine. So if this is a dominant genetic disorder, of course, one parent would have it. But it seems it's a recessive, maybe both parents are carriers, and all the kids became carriers. So which is an example of a recessive genetic disorder? Which of these does not? So Huntington disease is the one which is a dominant. So it's the one which is the answer. So you need to study pedigree very well. If you want to get answers to your pedigree questions, you need to study, take your time, study it very well. So, and hopefully I wish you all the best. So thanks for listening.